Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Monday of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, a big and furry bovine. Hey, and I am the panel today. If anyone wants to join in on the festivities, just check out the show description on the YouTube channel and click on the link, and you'll be transported magically into the kingdom of Mr. Moohead's studio. How's everybody doing today? I hope you're doing real well, watching the Guardians this afternoon in the first game of a double dip. And Andre Jimenez with a huge towering home run, giving the Guardians a 4-1 lead. I don't know if that game has ended yet, but quite honestly, off Harry Chafin. No, I don't know what Chafin's first name is, but he threw him a hanging slider, and Jimenez knew what to do with it. Interesting stuff happening for the Cleveland Guardians. But we're not here to really talk about that now, are we? This is the first I get to talk to you folks about what happened in our preseason game one. There is some stuff here that is obviously troubling. And I'm going to start with Deshaun Watson. I don't even think he was there. To be very honest with you, I don't think his head was in the game at all. I don't think that he's focused. I don't think under the set of circumstances of the way the league is handling this, that he could be focused. They refuse to make decisions on this. Hi, Brett Wilson. How are you?
Doing good. Good to see you.
Good to see you too. And I don't know what the NFL is doing, whether they're negotiating, but before the game, here's the deal, and this is what makes me think this way, Hector. The apology that he gave, I mean, I was fortunate enough to be able to catch the game, and I caught that interview. And, this guy's trying to salvage what there is for himself and is really in a dark closet locked in with no way out because the NFL is not moving forward with this. But I think it has more than that going on. It's interesting for me because athletes and confidence go hand in hand. And along with that, if you become a star, if you become a big name in a sport, what happens to you is that you start getting a sense of entitlement. I think Deshaun Watson has a crippling case of entitlement. I think the behavior that he exhibited, you're asking, did I cut myself? The answer is multiple times. I have over here, a scar, call me Scar Neck, from blindly shaving in the shower so many times cutting myself that it's just become a permanent scar. I think it adds toughness and character. What do you think?
Well, I thought Goodell maybe tried to hang you or something.
No, that would, although I could believe, coming from a Jewish background, that he might do that. So no, I haven't recently cut myself. I've just done it over and over again. And it's not self-mutilation either because I'm already mutilated. So what can I tell you? My feeling is that Deshaun Watson honestly believed that he was entitled to just do whatever the hell he wanted to do. And that meant women, wine, song, who knows what else. Hi, Derek. How are you?
Hey, finally got in. My goodness. I had to chase my neighbor's dog, and then my computer was crashing. And
that's no way to refer to the guy's daughter. Come on, please. We cannot have that on the program.
What's funny, it's actually his daughter's dog, so it's funny you say that.
Right. So I didn't say that. And for me, entitlement is part and parcel of why people become athletes. The fame, the notoriety. I mean, whether it's OBJ and his incessant social media, self-congratulatory banter, whether it's the the incredible Pigpen Roethlisberger who is talking about soft entitled players when he's done playing, when he clearly was a primary example of that. We've seen it in so many different ways. That's why it's so refreshing watching Nick Chubb, because there's a guy who's really an honest to God star who's grounded and down to earth. But if you look at the lifestyle that's being led by a lot of the athletes, not even just the big name athletes, but the middle tier athletes, I mean, they're out partying. They have their own group of people that they hang with. Beautiful women, wine and song. There is a lot of stuff that players, fast cars, big houses, notoriously not able to handle their money, even though they're lectured on it when they're young. They refuse to see that they're playing a sport that is going to leave them crippled later in life. So it's a live for today mentality.
Amsterdam is undefeated with the comments, I'm telling you.
I try to ignore them the best I can.
Just read it. You'll see what I'm talking
I
about.
know. I don't want to do that.
Oh,
I know. So my feeling is the reason there was no apology prior to this, and this, I had nobody to apologize. I have nothing to apologize about. I did not assault anyone. In his mind, you see, he did nothing wrong, because the women should want him and his body and his spooge and whatever else comes with it, because he's entitled. But look, it happens with Robert Kraft too. He thinks he can pull into a slave labor massage parlor and in a fucking limousine and go in and have sex and pay cash and walk out of the place, and sure enough, he gets away with it. So entitlement, what really contributes to entitlement is when the organizations or people surrounding athletes when they're young allow them leeway to do things that they should never have been allowed to do. It starts in high school, it grows in college if you're at a big Division I school, into the pros if you make a name for yourself. You have your team, the Houston Texans, setting up rooms for you to have sex in with Instagram women. And this is, that's the way it is. And it's that way for the owners and all kinds of people who are of inestimable means. So now all of a sudden, the walls are kind of closing in on Deshaun, and he's going to get his punishment. And he sees that he was entitled in high school. He was entitled at Clemson. But in the National Football League, he is an example to be made of. He is a black quarterback who has committed indiscretions, and his name, his swagger, his productivity on a football field are not going to get him out of it. And try as he may, for the first time in his fucking life, I'm sure, since he's become a big-time athlete, he has to account for his own behavior. And he realizes now that he had better say as many Hail Marys as he can say, including late apologies to women who, quite honestly, the vast majority of them for sure, don't deserve an apology. All right? They're sluts. Sorry. They took money for sex. Sorry. And then they got a bigger payout. Sorry. The whole thing was money, money, money. But that being what it is, I ain't going to be complimentary of Deshaun Watson. This is the first time in his life he's being held responsible. And you could see it on the field. The swagger was gone. He wasn't ready to play. He hadn't played in 500 days, and it looked like it. But that's not what I saw in his eyes. What I saw in his eyes was reluctance, was a lack of swagger. He looks like what Lamar Jackson's going to look like once he gets hurt.
You know what the biggest problem to me is? Can you still hear me, by the way?
Oh, yeah, beautifully.
Okay, cool. The biggest problem for me was if you go back and you look at every drive that he had, what was the common denominator? The offensive line did not look good. They did not know what they were doing. And to me, the biggest reason for that, it seemed like we completely tried to change the scheme. And it's important to remember all these offensive linemen that we have, including backups, have been brought in for this zone run play action scheme. They're not built for the drop back. You know what I'm talking about? So that was one of the things that I noticed. The other was the obvious one, and that was the drop catches. We decided to go to Schwartz back to back, which he's hot garbage. He's terrible. He had 2 balls hit his hands, that were dropped.
And you want to know something else he didn't do?
He ran the wrong route.
He ran the wrong route.
Well, yes, and I do blame him for that. But with that being said, Watson still should have. He still airmailed that first one.
He airmailed the first pass because he wasn't ready to play. He wasn't into the game. And, if you look at the game a couple of times like I have, and whatever plays he ran, he was also barking at Demetric Felton for not being in the right place. And later in the game, Demetric Felton got tied up with his own tight end.
Let me ask you this. What do you think? Because I've gone back and I've looked at that first couple. He played 3 series. What did you think the biggest problem was? Because I think my answer might be a little different.
As far as what was wrong when Deshaun was in the game?
Yeah.
Well, for one thing, there was nobody blocking up front.
Oh, God, yeah. It's the offensive line.
I mean, the offensive line was allowing penetration into the backfield, and so there was no threat out of the play action. That's the first thing. The second thing I could tell you that was wrong was that mentally the team was making errors of, men in motion who were not allowed to be in motion, or offensive offsides, coming out of their stance early.
That's my answer. My biggest problem with those first 3 drives, and you'll notice if you look at the offensive scheme from Deshaun's time versus Dobbs' time, it completely changed because the offensive line was sloppy. They were offsides, like you said. Everybody was in the wrong spot. So not only was the receivers bad, the offensive line was bad, Watson was bad, but the sloppiness and the penalties killed any chance of getting anything going. That was my biggest problem that I had, along with the multiple other things that we talked about. But why so sloppy? Why? I mean, it just looked horrible. And the penalties killed us.
I'll tell you something else. And it looked to me, when we were playing against their first string, not only were they outplaying us, they were way quicker off the ball. They were playing faster.
Yeah.
And this was... and people will say, well, Chubb wasn't playing and, Bitonio wasn't playing and yada, yada, yada. But the bottom line is that the players were not ready to play. And if I have to focus on Deshaun Watson, I'd say that he's just preparing for a long sit. He's not going to be a factor this year. And I would go as far as saying that with the best thing that could happen to him is that he goes away. Because if he tried to play through this, if they go to court on this and it allows him to play just because of the NFLPA's stance, you already saw what the Jaguars fans, and they don't have any. All right, to be honest, the Jaguars have no fans. But the people who showed up, the stragglers who are self-punitive people, were chanting, no means no. And again, defending women who don't deserve to be defended, who are back on Instagram, I'm quite certain, giving massages to men.
They were chanting "you sick fuck" too, which if he wants to play in this league, he better get used to it. He better build up that mental toughness, because that's not going away anytime soon. So I don't want to hear, oh, that bothered him. I don't want to hear, oh, the fans got to him. That does not matter. It does not matter at all. If you can't get used to that, you're going to fail the rest of your career in the NFL. It's that simple.
Yeah, and I guess what I'm saying is not a matter of excuse, but this is a guy who has been treated like a god in all of his years at Clemson, all of his years in Houston, so much so that he manipulated the team in essence, and the team let him, go out and grab hotel rooms and do these things with women, and we're fully aware of it. He is entitled, was entitled. And now when it's all caving in on him, he's going to have to find some reservoir of strength within himself. And that's, and it does. I think the comment that I've highlighted here by Keith is absolutely true. I mean, the team has just got to be like, do we have to go through this? Why don't we just play Brissett? But we're not going to see Brissett in game 2 either, which is even more bizarre as we go. The decisions that are being made as Dawson Deaton was carted off the field today, and we've made no overtures to any other centers. It is really what the Browns deserve, and they deserve to lose. As long as you keep making the wrong personnel decisions, and as long as you're not proactive in generating depth, when you see before the fucking season begins that you're thin at multiple positions, and you still stand there in front of the camera, Kevin Stefanski, and say, oh, I think, our wide receiver room will get it together. I know about Schwartz. I've been telling you about Schwartz. He was the worst draft pick that I've seen since Corey Coleman. I don't believe that he can play in the NFL. I don't believe he can do anything but occasionally catch a pass in practice. He can't play physical football. He's lousy. He stinks.
He's afraid. That's the biggest thing I noticed with him. He's afraid. If you watch him try to go over the middle,
just pulling up.
Yep, exactly.
I mean, it's just disturbing to watch. But I'll say something else. You want to talk about a shit performance? Look no further than DPJ. Piece of fucking shit. He wasn't blocking. I thought that DPJ got to where he was because he's such a hard worker, and he's not afraid to get in there. He's a good sized receiver and he'll block. Well, he wasn't blocking come game time. I can tell you that on 2 different occasions, he stood there not doing anything, and he had absolutely no impact on the game. And I'm tired of him. I'm tired of these Rashard Higgins guys who once in a while have a good game, and so we coronate them as up and coming receiver. When the guy was a 6th round fucking pick, get over it. He was not a prolific player at Michigan. He was a prolific player in high school. And how many people can we say that about? Everybody in the NFL.
Yep.
To Hector's point, it's not that the Browns are refusing to bring back Treader. Treader doesn't want to come back to Cleveland. They told him go elsewhere. Wow. So that ain't going to happen.
Who told him?
What do you mean? The Browns?
You said they told him to go elsewhere. Who did?
Yeah, the Browns, because of because of Nick Harris.
Yeah, well, here's the deal. If the Browns told J.C. Treader to go someplace else, I hope he finds a team and crushes the Browns. There is no way that a responsible individual, and let's be honest about what we're dealing with. This is the president of the NFLPA who took a hard stance, and you're telling me that there isn't a single owner in the league who isn't willing to put a dime down on J.C. Treader at 31 years of age? I know he's hurt. And I know he didn't even practice last year, and he still had like a 72 rating. It's ludicrous, but they will blackball people. That's what they do. And what it tells me is that Jimmy Haslam, it's more important to Jimmy that he's part of the club than it is that he has a winning football team. And he is willing for Cleveland to be the guinea pig of the league, everything to go against his team. He is willing to lose as many games, 131-1, as necessary to continue making this team a joke. And long before the season begins, I'm already getting on the fact that the team will never win. Not as long as that asshole, ignorant slut of a man is the owner of the team. It ain't going to happen. You telling me that having I don't even know what the kid's name is. Brockman? Is that the guy who is the backup now to Posich?
Kent Brockman.
I mean, I don't. And that Posich is going to go down.
Yeah.
It's going to happen. And they're sitting there doing nothing, and they're not preparing for the eventuality that it will happen. Just like the wide receivers. They're still trotting out Schwartz on the field like he can play at this level. Give me a fucking break.
Every backup, UDFA, free agent signing we had on Saturday played better than he did. Every single one of them.
He wouldn't start for anybody.
No, and he can't get open, can't run a pattern, can't catch a ball. I wish they would cut him, get rid of him. And he's not large enough to play. He's afraid. He's squeamish. He is horrible. He will never succeed. Never.
And one of the problems with him last year was just him not being able to get open, obviously. And he was wide open there, and we saw what happened. So what can you do with that?
The reason, Hector, you're afraid that things are going to blow up badly is because they always do. And the reason is that when you are a dishonest man, and Art Modell was a dishonest man. And when we came back in 99, the guy who really, was instrumental in putting the original group together died, and his autistic son took over the team and promptly moved to England. If I told you this all in succession, you say to me, well, certainly that company's out of business now, aren't they? And it's like, oh no, they're flourishing. They're making a ton of fucking money. So the reason you have a feeling is it can blow up badly in many different ways. But the bottom line is that Deshaun Watson, Baker Mayfield, and Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior, could not succeed as a Cleveland Brown with the ownership group and the mentality and the bad decisions that they make. It doesn't make any difference. You're never going to get anywhere.
It is what it is, man.
What Deshaun Watson has now is $230 million, minus whatever they fine him. And what is his... You tell me, what is his motivation for going out and being called rapist by a bunch of ignorant, doped up NFL fans? What is his motivation? He's already gotten guaranteed money. You tell me what his motivation is to win in Cleveland. If somebody could explain that to me, but Hector and I are in total agreement. And I'm not sure that it's going to blow up badly as far as they're going to discover dead bodies that Deshaun Watson buried or anything like that. I think it's just going to blow up because the whole situation, if you do anything wrong with Cleveland, your punishment will be the worst that it can be. You come to Cleveland, it's the worst place to be. They did a poll they put up on ESPN of what the worst cities to travel to play professional sports in Cleveland. Everything is always the same. And I grew up in Northeast Ohio, and I'll tell you, I had fun when I drove from Canton up to Cleveland. I had a good time as long as I wasn't on the east side. I was doing real well, except when I went to the Cleveland Clinic and had to go through the east side, and I almost ran over Huggy Bear by mistake. Other than that, quite honestly, I had no problem growing up in Northeast Ohio, and I've been in a lot of cities. Believe me, I've been in a lot of cities. But once this shitball starts rolling downhill and gaining speed, that's what it is. That's what it is. And Cleveland will always be spit upon, laughed upon, and players cannot extricate themselves from the mess. And it's so bad. Tell me a quarterback who left the Cleveland Browns because they failed, who is caught on and succeeded somewhere else. Anybody have an idea? Is there one?
I'm going to feel dumb for asking this question because I should know it, but did Kozar go to Dallas after he was done in Cleveland?
He did.
Kozar went to Miami.
Miami?
And then he ended up in Dallas.
Yeah, he ended up in Dallas.
And but he couldn't play anymore. I mean, somebody tell me, of all the opportunities the Browns have had to draft quarterbacks, and if you're going to say they all sucked, they all sucked. Fine, they were bad draft picks. But find me one quarterback who came to Cleveland, who left Cleveland and became a really solid, good quarterback. Name one. It's soul crushing. It's the most soul crushing thing you can imagine. So, I don't know. It has a psychological effect. And yes, right. That's the other thing that will happen forever time is every time we ignore the wide receiver position, they'll all get injured. And they'll all be third, fourth, and fifth, and sixth round picks like David Bell, who immediately gets a stress fracture, or DPJ, who realizes now this team is not really going to be particularly good. And they're going to force me to be the number one or number two wide receiver, and I'm not good enough to do it, and he knows it. So that's the end of that. And they'll continue to get hurt in the positions where they can least afford it, because it happens every fucking year. Every fucking year. And it's all the fault of the organization. You know, I look at a team like the Guardians, and God damn it, Francona is a really good manager.
Yep.
A really good manager, because he consistently through his career has gotten the max out of what was given to him. And I know what happened in Boston, and I know about the beer stories and all that. But, you know, it's not like we're seeing since he left Boston, it isn't like Boston has just steamrolled the league now, have they? This guy actually manages a baseball team. And you see what they're doing, and at least it makes sense. They're cheap and they don't spend any money. But, you know, they go through game one, and, you know, they get a really good outing from Savale. And there's a guy, Xavier something or other, who is going to be pitching the second game of the doubleheader this evening, who's making his major league debut. That'll be 15 or 16 players. It's unbelievable who've made their major league debut this year for the Guardians, and they're in first place. But what we see is they have at least a plan so that if somebody gets hurt, and if a guy like Karinchak gets hurt, or they have other people they end up developing other people to take over, and they have some basic idea of depth. They may not have star players, with the exception of Ramirez, and I'm beginning to believe that Jimenez is a real deal that he is developing early at 22. But I mean, we're winning with guys like Owen Miller. I mean, that guy's horrible. I'm sorry, but he's diving in the field, stopping ground balls because he has no discernible talent. He's a horrible fielder. He doesn't run well. He has no power, and he hits 230 or 240. All right. But you see, you have a guy who's hurt, like Naylor, who's had a really good season, but they have Oscar Gonzalez that they'll put in out in right field, and he's hitting 300. And who knows where these people come from? But they at least are developing something because they have some need. And they know that during the course of the season, things are going to happen. The Browns go through this like they have no clue. They're looking at this wide receiver room and honestly convincing themselves that this is an NFL roster. And then you're going to say, well, Amari Cooper really wasn't that good. Well, he really was that good when he played for a team that had other options to go to. But he's not going to be any factor in Cleveland whatsoever, because they could just double him all over the field. And they have a bunch of people who don't even know what patterns they're supposed to run. Doesn't it make you feel great that Demetric Felton now is getting all of his reps as a wide? It's like, make this fucking stop. He's not a wide receiver.
Yeah.
He's not even, he can't return kicks. And compared to Ford, he's a big fucking zero.
I was just about to say, isn't that interesting from the first preseason game? I said that Felton, if he's going to make the roster, his best chance is returning kicks. And did we see him return a single kick Saturday?
No, it was DeMarcus Bradley, and he was
and DeMarcus Bradley has no business returning punts because
he's a practice team player. He's
fucking slower than Corky.
Yeah, he's
he might make the roster as a receiver
I know
if they don't get help.
I mean, at some point, Kevin Stefanski's got to be held responsible for how poorly this team played in the first half of that game.
Kevin Stefanski is right in the middle of it, but again. They're into this analytics thing, and God only knows. It never says what it should say. And in common sense, it's like when our previous general man didn't like analytics at all, we would go after people, and he'd hit some and he'd miss some. It's amazing how many these analytics people miss.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm looking at Demetric Felton, and I don't mean to pick on the young man. I mean, he did what he could last year, but they got no place to play him. He doesn't know how to run patterns. And as a running back, I mean, put simply, if we have a Ford, he's a Yugo. We don't need him. He's not explosive. He's not fast. He doesn't break tackles. He's a shake and bake guy. And if you have a guy like Ford who can, let's be honest. Ford looked more like Dearness Johnson, didn't he?
You know who Ford looked like? Everybody's saying he looked like Nick Chubb. To me, he's
Ernest Biner.
He's not Nick Chubb, but he's got the shiftiness of Kareem Hunt and the hands of Kareem Hunt, but he's got the patience that Nick Chubb shows. And if he can keep on that track, I know it's been one game, he can be a heck of a running back for the Browns as a number 2 option someday.
Yeah,
I
thought
good.
of Ernest Biner. Ernest Biner could catch everything out of the backfield, but he was shifty. And, there's a difference between just blitz through the hole and just, and you're immediately, into 5th, 6th gear.
You notice
that's
how
not
pissed
him.
Kareem Hunt is?
Huh?
I said, did you notice how pissed Kareem Hunt is?
No.
Yeah, he's not talking to media. He's not talking to anybody. Still wants a trade. Jerome Ford, I'm telling you. I mean, I love Kareem Hunt. I really do. But, I mean, everybody here and everybody listening, if you're being completely honest with yourself, at this point, would you rather package Hunt and a pick for a solid wide receiver?
Oh my
I
God,
would.
yes.
I would, 100%. Because Ford's shown, I mean, the dude's got talent. He might not be a big piece yet, but
We got to see what he could do against frontline defenses and
Yep.
what decisions he makes when he's playing against frontline guys.
Yeah,
But-
well, about that, Jacksonville updated their defense, through free agency, and their ones were looking pretty damn good on their defensive front. They made our offensive line look like children out there. That's why Nick Harris got hurt. He got hurt because he got beat bad on the play, and he had his knee busted back.
They
because he-
stormed. They
he
jumped the count.
stormed right through him.
They jumped the count, man, and ran him over.
Exactly.
And there is
So-
no best option at quarterback, Keith. There is
Jimmy
no
G's
best option
definitely not.
because if you have no wide receivers, there is no best
There's
option.
no point. I mean, we might as well have Deshaun Kaiser, and that's who Watson looked like back there. He looked like Kaiser back there.
I was impressed with Dobbs, though. To be honest with you, I thought he handled himself pretty well for, being what, our third or fourth string quarterback.
Well, he had time to throw because they didn't have their top boys rushing us. Oh, here we go.
Uh-oh.
Your channel's going, motherfucker.
Oh, somebody got me. I like being gotten. It never gets old. Good job. And that's the other thing, Keith. The people who are analytics based will defend themselves to the end of the earth, and it's not worth arguing with them. And he also has Betty Davis eyes, Amsterdam, just so that you know I'm not ignoring you totally. All right.
So what's the Peter Alice comment of the day for that game?
Peter Alice. Okay, here we go.
Ooh.
Oh,
Oh.
Anthony Schwartz. Oh, it's horrible to watch. How could somebody so fast in a straight line be so hesitant to run sideways across a field? Oh, I'm glad I'm dead. Yeah, I think that's pretty much would cover it. It's pathetic.
Maybe do Harry Carey in hell watching the Browns, because that's what that's what it is. It's like being Harry Carey in hell watching that. I mean, it's like 1 a.m. my time, and I'm watching this rubbish. And I'm thinking, why am I still awake and doing this to myself?
They've got me strapped to a chair. Yeah, poor Harry Carey. I mean, it's like, he's got to watch all the Pittsburgh Pirate games. It's just wrong. And something, Hector, the fact they're not bringing Treader back is because they're stubborn and they don't want to win.
Yep.
In the end, it's more important that they stroke their own egos. And what has lost the locker room, Hector, is that when things go well in Cleveland, you're just waiting for the hiccup. All right. I mean, let's be honest about this. Things go well the 1 year with Baker Mayfield, then the next he's just like hot garbage. And it always happens this way. We might have that one season where Vinny Testaverde played relatively well, and we got into the playoffs, and then it was over with. And then the team just went right back to suck dick. That's what it is, and that's the way it's been in Cleveland forever. And it's kind of like a person who's so thin-skinned that if you insult them in any way, they just totally lose what little self-esteem that they were pretending to have. The Browns are fragile. They're a fragile organization. You know, something, Hector. Higgins can play wherever Higgins wants. Well, he can play with Eliza Doolittle. I mean, Higgins can just blow me because he's not serious about playing. He wants to roll out the red carpet for himself, and to hell with him. I know, Tom, it's amazing that a guy who had the second best stats of the league can't get a job because he's the president of the NFLPA. Really amazing, isn't it? And if they keep him out of the league, you want to know why? It's because he's doing a good job, and he won't be able to be the NFLPA president if he's not a player on a roster. And no owner is going to step over that boundary. They want him out of there.
Wow.
Out. Just as sure as Kaepernick's out, they want Treader out.
That shouldn't actually be legal to do that. Well,
what's legal
actually
about
be
the
legal.
NFL?
Exactly. But yeah, if it was a normal union rep at a normal corporation.
And I
I'm sure you
don't
can
want to
do
be
that.
negative about the Browns either, Mark. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, I don't get off on this, but watching it year in, year out, it's obvious when you go into a season and you're saying, how could we not have drafted any wide receivers higher than David Bell? How is it possible that
With
we
two
haven't
great
done
ones on the
anything?
board. 2 great receivers on the board. We don't
pull the trigger. And it's always because we're looking for a value. We're looking for a value. Like, you can go to a fucking Dollar General store and you think you're going to find something of value in the whole fucking store. I mean, but this is what we're living for at a skilled position that we can never fill. And as soon as they do this over and over again, I'm absolutely convinced that it's just going to be like this forever. And it's a problem. And Jim, I'd like to tell you that the problem with Schwartz is that, but he shows no ability. I mean, a deep threat, he can run fast in a straight line. But the second he has to stop in the middle of the field and come back for the ball, he pulls up short and lets somebody run in front of him and pick the ball off. He sucks. He's not a football player. He's a track and field guy.
What good is having him on a straight line route if you throw him the ball and he's wide open and he can't catch it?
Yeah.
I mean, you got to be able to be at least somewhat of a threat to be effective.
Jimmy G isn't going to be any better than Jacoby Brissett. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter who's behind center at this point. The offensive line, I mean, I know what I'm seeing. And, you can say, well, Batonio wasn't out there. We didn't have all of our guys, and Conklin wasn't out there. But Jedrick Wills was, and he was getting run through.
And he was getting flagged. The same stuff we've been talking about with him for how long?
Yep.
Every game.
So
this is his 3rd year in the NFL. There's no excuses why in his 3rd season in the NFL as the number 10 overall pick from a great college football team that you're playing as sloppy as you are. And it's not even that he's got a bad offensive line coach. He's got one of the best in the league, and he's still not learning.
Yeah, maybe he's dumb. I don't know.
I agree with Amsterdam. Put him back to right tackle. I don't know how much that would help, but I'm starting to think he's just not fit to be a left tackle.
Wow.
And they have these personnel issues that are big that no amount of coaching is just going to turn it around and fix it.
There's just, and Keith C saying we should have kept Baker. What's Baker going to do with this? What would Baker have done with this team? And the fact of the matter is, he's played one preseason game, and he's still, in a fair sense of the word, in a life and death struggle with Sam Big Forehead Darnold. The only reason that he'll get the job is because Darnold has been so bad for so many years. And there's hope that springs eternal. And Baker will, rally the team for a game here and there. And Baker Mayfield is bound to be the next Fitzpatrick and occasionally have big games and, and be around a 500 quarterback for some team. But when it really comes push to shove, he's going to get nervous in the playoffs, throw off his back foot, throw 3 picks, and it doesn't matter. He would have done nothing different there, and Jimmy G would do nothing different, and Jacoby Brissett will do nothing different. If your big mammoth 330-pound guy who was a left tackle, who was a right tackle, and he's just fucking lazy. He doesn't learn the playbook. He doesn't work on his technique. He's fucking lazy. That's what Jedrick Will's problem is. He's lazy.
I think he's careless too. Obviously I don't know the guy, but based on what we do know, it doesn't seem like he wants to learn. Doesn't seem like he really cares.
Yeah, and it was funny. Somebody told me that Len Dawson was in hospice. He's at the end of his life. He's 87 years old. And, it didn't say Alzheimer's. I don't know why he's in hospice, but my response to it was this week in the NFL, because it just seems to me that the ongoing drama is people dropping dead. And that's the only real interest that goes on around the NFL. Hi, Robin, how you doing? He can't return kicks, play special teams. He's not a receiver. He can't block.
Adam Ant did a song about him. Goody two shoes.
What can you do?
Yeah.
I guess the subtle innuendo must be something. Yeah. At any rate, the first cut is the deepest, is tomorrow at 4.
Baby, I know, man.
What's it down to? 84?
Yeah.
Or 85?
What is it, about 172 now?
I don't know.
I mean, can you imagine being like the first cut of the Cleveland Browns, how bad you would be?
Yeah, that's
who better have a shot at making this team?
Cool.
The kid we got to not the receiver. I'm sorry, the safety, Bell, DeAnthony Bell.
Yeah, I mean, that guy hammered that ball out from behind, and he had a big hit earlier. He was out there at least playing hard, now wasn't he?
Let me ask you this, right? Based on what we've seen so far, it's not a big sample size, but just based on character and willpower and motivation, Ronnie Harrison or DeAnthony Bell?
No, I mean, right now, you would say Anthony Bell. I mean, Ronnie Harrison was out there, and he was a ghost again. And he's wandering around like, Moses in the desert. I don't know what he's doing out there.
He better get a shot. I'm going to be pissed if he's a part of that cut list early on.
And, Mr. B, George Pickens has talent, but George Pickens is a head case. And we'll see, if you love Chase Claypool, you're really going to love George Pickens, whatever. I don't give a shit about the Steelers. In fact, I can honestly say that all my rants about CTE, I really don't consider the Steelers when I talk about the subject, because I don't like their coach. I don't like the way he coaches. I don't like the way the team plays. They're filthy, dirty players. And I have no sorrow for that organization whatsoever. They're the biggest dick suckers in the NFL. They are always in good stead with the league, and they are dirty. And their head coach is an asshole. I'd like to see somebody blindside hit him and concuss him real good. I don't respect that. Hey, Renee, you didn't, you just walked away, Renee. Yeah.
It's not even about George Pickens, though. Again, Sky Moore was on the board. You want a fast receiver who's a great route runner with good hands? There he was. And guess what? You passed up on him.
You're going to be bitter about this for a long time, aren't you, DF Sports?
Well, it's.
gonna
I
be
mean, we
years,
talk
man.
about this
I
over
know,
and
I know.
over, and it's just like, my goodness, I really don't care how good or how bad Martin Emerson is. It's like you had a much drastic need right there at wide receiver. You had two of them on the board. You traded back, and then Sky Moore still fell. You could have traded up, or at least traded down a couple more spots, and still have gotten him. So don't give me this, oh, well, we gained picks. You still could have gained picks and got him. I mean, come on.
Well, when is our first pick for next season? So if we're tanking this year, it's good news for the Texans.
We've traded
really,
away
isn't it?
our first round pick
Yeah,
for
I know.
3 years.
I know.
We have
When
second.
do we pick first?
It would be our second round pick, which,
Wow.
depending on,
Yeah,
So we're
and
going to
it
be
will
picking 33 then.
another bozo.
What would we,
And look
44?
at that. Look at this. Hey, Reyes hit a homer. He's hitting well.
Woohoo!
Yeah. Talk about lazy. That guy, absolutely lazy. And for the Guardians to just give up on him like that,
Yeah.
I mean, if you listen to the announcers talking about him when he was on the team, he just was told, you've got to get in the physical condition to be able to play right field, because if you want to be on the field, we just can't use a designated hitter. We need position players because we're looking for a lot of platooning to go on. And instead, he just doesn't work out in the offseason. He comes in out of shape. He doesn't hustle. He doesn't run hard. Strikes out an inordinate percentage of the time. I'm glad he's gone. And I'm glad somebody's given him a chance. And at first, what do you mean you can't get in, Renee? Sure you can get in. What happened?
Hey, Jim, I don't know if it's Giles or Gillies. You're 100% correct. Khalil Shakir was on the board in the 5th round. Browns could have got him. Another guy who's been promising. Just pass him up. Whatever.
Yeah, I feel bad that Renee can't get in. If you want to,
Hey, you know what I think it is? Next year for the draft, instead of looking at wide receivers, I'm just going to look at every other position except receiver, because every time I look at receivers, the Browns just do not care.
Good point. We're going to need offensive line next year, though.
We're going to need a left tackle is what we're going to need. Possibly a right tackle, too, Conklin. I mean...
Maybe that's why Renee can't get in, because you block people from coming in inadvertently.
No, I didn't block. I just banned that. Well, actually, that person jumped out, but they were going to get the ban hammer anyway.
That guy came in to say hi to Brett.
Wow.
Oh, boy. Yeah. You know something? That would be our quarterback, Salman Rushdie, because he only would be able to look at half the field now.
Oh,
Brett, you like that one?
So bad.
I know, it's unfortunate.
My goal is to
and
now
this
make
is
Brett
true.
laugh
What Renee
as much
says
as
is true.
possible.
It was just a preseason game, and I don't really judge everything that I see. But you know what I do notice? When a team is disinterested, and I don't know why I think the longer the Ronnie Harrisons are on the roster, the more that the team around will just sink to a low level. People who don't care win in the long run. I know this because I would go in and buy businesses, folks, and where the morale, you wouldn't believe how bad the morale was in the radio stations that I bought. I mean, and there were some good people in those buildings who ended up having long careers with me in Flint, Michigan, and they were really good people and they really wanted to win. But all it takes is a few people who are in the wrong position and have some clout to drag everybody down. And when people see that it's never going to change, they just lose their interest and they just don't work hard. And that's the problem. The case will get settled, Wolfgar. I mean, it's the thing that's interesting about it. 12 days is not expedited. All right. It's been 12 fucking days and they're still doing nothing. And the rules say, it's like the Tuck rule. Well, they can make the rules mean whatever they want them to mean. But 12 days is not expediting a decision when you're just a matter of weeks away from the beginning of the season. The fact is, it will get settled when the NFL wants to settle it, but obviously they're a little concerned and want to go about it the right way so that they can protect as many of their rapey owners as they possibly can. And that's the only way I look at it. I'm just scrolling through comments. Yeah, that's right, Jim. What did you think you were going to get? I mean, I can't remember the last good Auburn wide receiver, honestly.
He wasn't even a receiver really at Auburn. They just used him on jet sweeps and occasionally on a vert. His highlights is like 2 minutes from his entire time in college.
I finally remembered who Schwartz reminds me of. Remember Ronaldo Nehemiah? I think he was on the 49ers.
Yeah, sure.
Like won gold medals. Yeah. But yeah, he only caught like a couple dozen passes and I don't know how many games he played. So,
and he was an absolute stud hurdler.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I don't know what in the hell,
I mean, the only guy that's worked out from track into the NFL was Bob Hayes.
That's right.
He's the only guy that I can even think of that, has had a good career who was a track guy,
I mean, a guy named Schwartz should be a Jewish attorney.
He should be doing accounting work,
Yeah, yeah. It's like, so let me take a look at your returns. Yeah, that's what he should be doing. He shouldn't be on a football field. I mean, and the thing is, what's really scary is, and this is why Derek's so pissed off about it too, and he'll be the first one to agree. We just watched his film and knew he sucked. We knew it was the worst reach that you could have made. Just terrible decision.
And especially when I can't remember if it's Amon-Ra St. Brown or St. Brown's brother, whoever it was, one of the St. Browns was still on the board, and I think ended up getting picked like 5th round or 6th round or something like that. It's like when you have guys like that, I'm not saying you're going to get every one of them, but can you do some more scouting, please? And not just look at a guy and go, oh, he's fast, let's take him. I mean, come on.
You mentioned Bell, not David.
D'Anthony Bell.
D'Anthony Bell looking good, and Ford looking good. It was nice to see Isaiah Thomas in the backfield, even though it's interesting, his rating was not very good. I was looking at the numbers here, excuse me, and the PFF grades, obviously at defensive end, Chris Odom had the highest, Curtis Weaver next. Chase Winovich was only at a 64. Rochelle, who had a sack, was at a 61. Isaiah Thomas was at a 57.
I don't care what the numbers say. You go back and you watch that game. He was getting pressure. He had 2 sacks. He looked good. I don't care what
got into the backfield, but against who? I mean, that's going to be the other thing.
Yeah, but I mean, you're talking for what was he, a 7th round pick who you're going to have as a rotational guy? You can't ask for more than that. I mean, he was incredible.
The 2 people who had the lowest defensive tackle numbers were the 3 were Togiai, Jordan Elliott, and Perion Winfrey, and that's not what the Browns want to see.
Which surprises me, because if you watch the game, I thought those 3 did solid. I mean, they weren't great, but I saw Elliott getting pressure. Togia had some pretty good.
Made
He,
4
I can,
tackles, Togi, I did.
he had a couple big time tackles. The one, I think it was ETN or whoever the running back was about to break one and he caught him. So, I mean, whatever. PFF
Oh.
can say what they want.
That's another thing I wanted to say was Travis Etienne is going to get killed at some point this year. The way he runs and the way his body is and the way the NFL speed is, somebody's just going to level him and they're going to have to cart him off the field in October. The dude's got no future. The Jacksonville announcers were just like spuging all over him throughout the entire game. I don't know whether you guys had to listen to those Jacksonville clowns, but oh my God, the guy's going to get killed.
Yeah,
It's going to have to be tough.
And what did you think of Martin Emerson's pick?
Oh, well, I actually missed it. I was getting set
Oh, it was
up.
good. Well, it was
I-
like he stole the ball from the guy, basically.
Yeah, I was dumber than you. I decided to do a halftime and post game just for the fun of it with some.
Oh man, you walked out of the room. That's all it took.
Wow.
No, I didn't walk out of the room. I just wasn't paying attention to my TV because I thought, well, it's halftime, whatever. Next thing I know, I'm seeing we scored, and I look back and it was a great play. I mean, I got to give him credit. He went up, was physical, good coverage, got the ball, took it to the house. I mean, he was sloppy on that first drive. I know you noticed it because you tweeted at me. And
Yeah,
I
and the
noticed
first throw of the game, it was like lovely.
Yeah.
But he's young, he's inexperienced, and he was going up against a frontline guy. But again, this is what preseason is for.
It's good for his confidence. I will say that. I'm glad that, he had a couple pretty good plays. That pick, that'll, if he can do that as our 5th string corner, great. Whatever.
Well, all you need to know, Hector, if Nassib signed with Tampa, he's going to be hanging out in the pier. Right.
Dear, oh dear. Can't say that.
Sure I can. I most certainly can, because that's the big party area.
Yeah.
Hey, did you notice how bad our interior D-line run defense was?
We were being pushed right off the
Oh, my
line.
God.
That they got to figure something out there. Because that was ugly.
Well, the line on Emerson was that he did not intercept passes at Mississippi State. Isn't that where he went?
Yeah, Mississippi State.
He did not pick off passes. So this kind of came as a surprise. But,
Well, and it was a deep play, too, because that was my biggest criticism of him was this. He's going to get burnt. His footwork, he just not good. But on that play, he was right there with him, stuck to him, didn't get flagged, and got the ball. So
got two things I want to say before I get out of here. One, if you've been following the story of the Chicago Bears and Roquan Smith, the contract negotiations really got bizarre when he walks in with an agent who is a non-NFLPA certified agent. I mean, everything is happening. You've got the PGA Tour being, threatened by LIV. You've got, the NFL having to crack down because they've been perceived as soft in the past. And now the NFLPA, it's like a player just signs an agent who's non-certified, and there's some guy named Saint Omni who's not a certified agent is contacting clubs claiming that he's representing Roquan Smith. They said that Mr. Omni is prohibited from negotiating player contracts or discussing potential trades on behalf of any NFL player or prospective player, or assisting in or advising with respect to such negotiations. So, I mean, what's going to happen next, for God's sakes? Roquan Smith can't agree to a contract with the Bears. Who wants to be with the Bears? Mitch Trubisky is thrilled to be gone from the Bears. There's nothing good to be said about the Bears, except if we can save them from bear traps in the wilderness. There is nothing good to be said about that organization. They have drafted themselves into hell. And, but I just think that it's incredible that a guy is so stupid that he hires a non-certified agent and doesn't even know the rules that his own players association has endorsed. The last thing I want to say is something that kind of saddens me. Pete Carrill, who a lot of the younger fans won't know who Pete Carrill was. He was the guy who made the Princeton offense notorious, and he did not invent, contrary to belief, he did not invent the Princeton offense in basketball, but he used it. And if you don't know what the Princeton offense was, it was back cutting. It was a slow moving, put your opponent to sleep, backdoor cut kind of offense. He passed away at the age of 92. He lived a good long life. But he made Princeton, and if you remember Princeton beating Georgetown in the NCAA tournament, like 52-50, that was the way Pete Carrill's teams would beat people, was on low scoring and patience and real just determination. And Princeton basketball has never been the same since. They were the kind of team that you had on your schedule and you just didn't want it. You just didn't want to play against that, because once they got you into that slow pace, teams would panic and lose. But I really like Pete Carrill. And I'm sorry to see that he passed away, but I didn't want a show to go by without mentioning him. And for those people who are wondering, Deshaun Watson looks sharp during practice, but I will end the show the way that I started the show, which is he's taking second string reps now. And this is all part of what has happened to him. He's gone from being the entitled one and the football god to taking second string reps. And he's taking second string reps behind Jacoby Brissett. And this is a comeuppance that is long overdue. We're going to find out, not as a football player, as a man, what he's able to accomplish. And we'll see how competitive he is and how he pulls himself, or if he pulls himself together. But all of this stuff is a big comeuppance for him and could be the greatest gift that could have been given to him, or will be his undoing. We're going to be here to watch it for you. That's what we do. So thank you, Bronk, as always, and Merry England, and Derek.
No.
Thank you. And Coach Brett, good seeing you. And thanks to everybody who tuned in. And, I'm going to be looking for the game again. And I'll be commenting on the game on Twitter, but I'm not doing any, halftime and post-game shows and preseason games. And it's just going to be interesting to see how all this plays out.
Hey,
Thanks,
Brett,
everybody, for tuning in. Go ahead.
Brett, is that Renee in your window? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
Don't make me freak out.
Come in your window. Forget it. You know what amazed me? And I'm going to digress before I go. I was singing a Melissa Etheridge song, but in a disgusting, vulgar way. I want to know, how could somebody be so stupid to want a surrogate sperm donor and get David Crosby from Crosby, Stills, Nash, and Young, who is a notorious drug addict? Do you know that Melissa Etheridge and she was in a lesbian relationship, and so they wanted a child, and so they used David Crosby's sperm and that child is dead already from drug overdose.
Oh my gosh.
You know, it to me, you want to talk about bad decisions. The fact of the matter is, bad decisions yield bad results consistently. And the Cleveland Browns are just a good example of that. I mean, the second you say, you know, let's wreck this league, we're taking Johnny Manziel, you know, you're just pissing away years. You make bad decisions, it's going to come back and haunt you. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back again on Friday, as always, on Moohead Radio. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
Moo.